Golden Doves, class 164, page 92. We're dealing with the methodology used by the Rebbeinu HaKadosh in formulating the Mishnayot. One of the things we learned is density of language. Easier to remember something by heart when it's fewer words. Second thing we learned is using a similar word, or the same word rather, because it's easier to remember the same word. So, חמץ של יהודי שעבר פסח, שעבר עליו הפסח, אסור בהנאה, ושל גוי, mutar be'ana'ah, using the same phrase hana'ah, even though it would have been more accurate to say achila. Another thing, using the same phrase where the same phrase has a different meaning in different contexts, but you use that same phrase even though it has a slightly different meaning. So we're going to be doing that. This Mishnah is in Masechet Terumot. Let me read the Mishnah for you. It's Perek He, Mishnah Vav. I'm going to read the Mishnah and then I'm going to read the text in the Golden Doves. Se'ah terumah shenafla lefachot mi'me'ah v'nidme'u. You have one se'ah of terumah, which of course nobody's allowed to eat except for the Kohen, and it fell into 100 se'ot of, let's say, one se'ah of wheat, 100 se'ot of wheat, which is non-terumah. So the terumah is batel in 1 in 100, but here it fell into a little less than 1 in 100, right? So let's say 1 in 99. So now the whole thing becomes asur. And let's say some of the meduma, some of this mixture falls into a second mixture. So since the first mixture is all forbidden, right, because the terumah fell into it, let's say one se'ah from the first mixture falls into a second mixture, you're going to need 100 against that one se'ah, even though technically it's less terumah in that one se'ah because it was already mixed in. That's shitat Rabbi Eliezer. Hachamim say, "Ena meduma midamea ela lefi heshbon." Now the terumah, it forbids the second mixture in proportion to the amount of terumah in the first mixture, right? So it would be you would assume that let's say 1 in 99 of the se'ah that came from the first mixture to the second mixture is actually terumah, and then you would be able to annul that. So that was case number one. Also, if you have, for example, on Pesach, you have, not on Pesach, just in general, you have a terumah of yeast, right? And you put the terumah of yeast into flour that's not terumah. Now that bread or that dough that you make, it becomes leavened from the terumah of yeast, and the status of that dough is it's all considered terumah, right? Now let's say a piece of that dough now falls into another piece of dough, right? So now we're going to forbid the second dough in proportion to the amount of terumah that actually fell into it, right? So here it is, I'm sorry. That was case number 2, my apologies for that. So the rule of mayim she'ovim is if you have a mikveh of water, kosher, let's say rainwater, and it's a little less than 40 se'ah, if it has 40 se'ah in it, then mayim she'ovim, drawn water, doesn't annul the rainwater, the mikveh water. But let's say, for example, you had less than 40 se'ah, so 3 logim of drawn water would annul the less than 40 se'im of rainwater. So for these 3 logim to annul the 40 se'im, it needs to be in a minimum of 3 kelim. But let's say so if you have 1 keli with 1 log, a second keli with another log, a third keli with another log, or if you just had 1 keli with 3 logim, it would be posel. But let's say you had 5 kelim, and the shelosha logim would divide it between the 5 kelim, and then you pour from those 5 kelim into the mikveh. According to the Mishnah, it's not posel. It's not posel ela lefi cheshbon. So in this third case, lefi cheshbon doesn't mean proportionally. It means according to the number of kelim, which is to say 1, 2, 3 kelim containing 3 logim would annul the 40 se'im or less than 40 se'im of mikveh water. But if you had 4 kelim or 5 kelim, it would not annul it. So you see that same word, lefi cheshbon, has a different meaning in case 3. So it's a little inaccurate. It's not, right? Inaccurate in the sense that within the same paragraph, the same phrase should have the same meaning. But Abinu HaKadosh was concerned about studying by heart. So let's study that right now. Likewise, different cases containing similar expressions, lefi cheshbon, may be grouped together. They're putting these 3 cases together, although the sense of these expressions varies. The expression lefi cheshbon, according to the counting in the Mishnah Terumah 5:6, which is what I just read to you, means proportionality in the first 2 cases, right? Where we look at the proportional amount of terumah in the mixture, right? But in the last case, according to the number, lefi cheshbon meant the number of vessels used to pour the maim she'uvim, the shelosha lugim maim she'uvim, into the mikveh, which had less than 40 se'in of water. Occasionally, for the sake of harmony, as well as for mnemonics, a term appearing in one section also appears in the other, although it is superfluous, already implicit in the sentence. The expression kedeh nesava serves to indicate this type of fluidity. So when you see superfluity, so in the sense of superfluousness, right? Superfluity. So the point is that sometimes you'll see the Gemara says, why do we have this extra word in the Mishnah? We don't need it a second time. But it creates a certain rhythm in the Mishnah. And when you see the words kedeh nesava in the Gemara, it's talking about that type of superfluousness or superfluity, as my father says. And if you look at footnote 25, there's a few examples of this superfluous verbiage used in the Mishnayot, but it's done for the sake, again, of creating a certain rhythmic structure to the language, so it's easier to remember it